and a serial entrepreneur. Everybody, help me to welcome both the gentlemen on stage. Thank you very much.
All right. I hope I'm audible till the back. Yes, all right. I'm sure everybody's been looking forward to this conversation. Mr. Screwvala, thank you so much for joining us for this interesting conversation. I have a set of questions for you, and I'm sure that the audience is going to be equally excited to know a little more about you and your background in sense, your online schooling. Now, let's talk about your school days. Let's just rewind the clock and go back in time. How were your school days back in the day, and how is it different from what you see today?
I think the best memories you carry in life are actually your school days. I think the deepest friendships you form are in your school days. And the most you learn and the open-mindedness comes from your school days. So frankly, I think for all of us, even when people have amnesia, I think the first thing you go back is 30 years, 20 years into your life. So it's the closest and fondest memories. It's also the most important part of your life. And I think that's something, I came from a lower middle class family. So for me, schooling was really a very collaborative exercise. Some people take sports. I think I was blessed to be inclined towards theater. And I think theater taught me everything that I wanted to know today, which is soft skills, collaborativeness, participation, sense of self-confidence. I think if I'm sitting here, I think today the younger generation can just look at self-confidence. That's part of where you want to go. So I think since when I am to now, I've been very, very closely associated. And today the aspirations and ambitions of young people in India is just incredible. It's a very balanced growth. They're wired very differently. Their inquisitiveness and their curiosities are at a different level. I think the biggest challenge here is their sense of expectation of what they need is actually getting higher and higher. And I think if we disappoint them, we won't just disappoint ourselves, we'll disappoint them. So therefore, I think keeping a dynamic environment of change for all of us, I don't think it's a question of do we need to change our mindsets. I think we'll be doing this next 5 generations a lot of harm if we are not being able to understand where they come from and serve their aspirations.
Just to follow up on that, you're somebody who's pioneered the online learning space. How do you think that people are changing and evolving in the sense, how is it that they're evolving in consuming information and also reacting to online learning?
See, I think you should look at things as choice. I mean, again, I think the choices we make are the most important. So online is not here to necessarily look at something that's replacing it. I think you're giving optionality and you're giving choice. And that is the bedrock of that. If you look at this as a change or it's an also and, that becomes a problem. So I think the optionality is what excites us. If you look at the working professional, our GRE ratios show that 75 out of 100 people haven't really gone through formal education. They're not going to be able to change that. We're not going to be able to invest $100 billion in infrastructure in this country. The faculty that we have here is something that will not be at that multiplication level. So to give people the choice that I can go back and do some sense of my formal education is really what online. If you look at it at the schooling level, it's the same element. Some people want to optionally pursue a career in a different manner. Actually, some people move from school to school 5 times, 6 times. I've been fortunate I moved school only once, but there are many people who do that. So I think today, the approach to extracurricular activity, the approach to soft skills, that optionality is very, very powerful, which I think I'm excited about.
We'll talk about the skill sets in just a bit, but then do you see online learning, online schooling actually replacing the traditional form of schooling?
I don't think it needs to replace. I think we need to stop dead on our tracks where we are looking for something to replace. Because when you do that, it becomes an either or. And then there's a sense of not wanting to change. So I would say it's more about choice. It's more about optionality. Sometimes it's more about accessibility. Sometimes it's more about affordability. And I think if you look at those elements there, that's what the support system should be. I don't think anything should replace anything.
So then how do you see school students develop practical skills, along with in the space of online schooling. Like you said, it's an added-on benefit, or it's an option, it's a choice that you have. So then how do you inculcate, the practical learning of a student who's perhaps in grade 5th?
So I think what I've seen and what I've observed is that the pedagogy, the teaching approach, and the focus of 25 people in a class is actually quite magical. I guess the biggest challenge is how do we get them to also then be social about them? To be honest, technology is quite social. To be honest, most of the kids in this generation their best friends are going to be bots. So in a generation where your best friend is going to be a bot, you better bet clear that you want to have an optionality where you want to get them around that. So that's where we're going to in the first place, and we can't run away from that. In that context, I think this online schooling allows you to contract your working hours, doesn't put that pressure sometimes that schooling does. You don't need to spend 2 hours on transportation. Then there's the whole tuition part, and it allows you to actually have another life. It could be pursue sports, chess, anything else you want to necessarily do. And it's not just about optionality of extracurricular activities. It's just a longer list of that. I guess we need to still bridge the one part of how do they feel much more sociable in an environment which otherwise in a classroom, you learn a certain amount of peer-to-peer learning. Technology allows a lot of peer-to-peer learning. I think the power of peer-to-peer learning in the school and in the technology part is almost the same. So I think there's some work to be done in that part. But the quid pro quo of the focus and the ability to give them optionalities is, I think, standing out. But it's a personal choice for everyone. It's not about replacing.
You're talking about technology and bots. Of course, AI is the talk of the town, and it's here to stay. So how do you feel that AI is it going to add tremendous kind of value to online schooling? How does learning get affected? How does learning get better? How does teaching get affected? So AI over the last few years has made headlines.
So there are two parts to this, right? I think one is the actual end product of what you need to learn, and what AI is going to change your career part. And the second one, in education at least, is what is the input that will allow teachers, faculty, pedagogy, timetables, all of that, where almost 30 to 40% of what you are doing can actually be augmented. Now, the perception seems to be that AI sounds like a shortcut. It's a cheat sheet. So I think we need to move away from the fact that it's a doubt resolution context or it's a cheat sheet. And if you sort of harness that, I think the biggest challenge today is acceptability. Once you have that accessibility, you can go forward. But I just want to tell you, you have a problem with the accessibility, but your target group, which is the young students, they don't think there's an accessibility problem or an acceptability problem. They're growing up in that area, whether we like it or not.
So you've definitely interacted with a few students, who've been a part of the online schooling ecosystem. How do you find them different? Are they different, or how is it that they're reacting to, or maybe being amongst people who are actually going to physical schools? Is there a difference?
I think there's a difference today. I don't think it can be strongly differentiated. I'm not here to sit down and evangelize online schooling versus something else. I want to be extremely candid about the fact that you will find different people with different personalities that blossom. And I think the optionality allows people to blossom. And that's how I see them as different. It's not like, again, the more we try and segregate the either or, I think the more resentment or the more separation there will be. And I think it's very, very critical as we adopt this technology that we don't sort of do an either or, because otherwise there'll be the people for and be the fall against. And that's not needed.
Just my last question, talking about the future ahead. How is online schooling going to prepare students for the industry, for the corporate world in terms of skill sets? What is the future for online schooling in that front?
Well, my yoga teacher has adopted that, and I conversed with him in between my pranayas on a thought process to what got him there. And I think what I see around is, again, the ability for them to harness the world and have a little bit more time. I think in our working professional life, I've seen that. We're kind of calendarized. So I think even in the student world, there's too much of calendarization. And I think we're ability to shrink that calendarization and give people the ability to pursue something else, which is their dream, or their ability to participate in something is very, very strong. So I just don't see this as an either or, but I also don't see it as an if or a when. The when has already arrived. And therefore, I think we just need to accept it. We need to harness it, because if we don't, that's where we'll get pushed to.
I think you've summed it up beautifully, Mr. Ronnie Screwvala. Thank you so much for
Thank
taking
you.
your time and
Thank you.